In this episode of the High Side, we'll talk about Richard Petty Motorsports and their potential move to Toyota and potential investors. We'll talk about Ross Chastain and his future in the Xfinity Series and Kaulig Racing, and we'll also talk about Noah Gragson putting on the most epic troll last week in NASCAR. Now let's get into the video. So I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and thank you guys for hanging out with me on this episode of the High Side. Before we get started in today's news, I do want to mention two things. One, if you guys watched the last video, thank you so much. We had over 6,000 views as of the time I'm recording this. So thank you guys for all the support, all the new subscribers and likes. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that you guys are really enjoying these episodes in this series called the High Side. And if you guys are a new subscriber, let us know in the comments. If you guys are new to the channel, we'd love to meet you. And secondly, I want to mention that I would love to start answering you guys' questions in future videos, anything related to NASCAR. That could be news, opinion, any personal stories that I have, or anything NASCAR related. How does the sport work? Anything you guys can think of NASCAR related that you guys want to have asked in a future episode of the High Side, let me know in the comments below. But with that said, let's get into today's news. The first big piece of news I want to talk about today is Richard Petty Motorsports and their future beyond 2020. There's been a lot of news out there, a lot of rumors as far as potential investors, switching manufacturers, and so there's a lot to digest and figure out about what it looks like, and we also don't know who their potential driver could be for next year. Bubba Wallace's future is still up in the air. So there's a couple investors that have been floated around as far as potentially buying into the team. First one being Michael Jordan. We know he does own the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA. And so we know he's not new to ownership in sports. And obviously he had a great career in basketball. So there was a rumor last week of Michael Jordan potentially looking into ownership with Richard Petty Motorsports. And that rumor was actually kind of put to rest, at least it seems at the moment, which was tweeted by Bob Procris. He said Michael Jordan's camp is not pursuing ownership at this time. Now that could be a lie. That could be them covering up, trying to squash rumors at this moment. But it does appear that Michael Jordan is not looking at ownership at this current time. Again, that could totally change. But the bigger rumor coming out of this week, and it wasn't necessarily denied, but it wasn't confirmed either, it was the idea of Denny Hamlin looking for ownership in the Cup Series with Richard Petty Motorsports. This idea of Denny Hamlin potentially taking an ownership role in the NASCAR Cup Series started with a tweet, I believe, by Jenna Fryer. And Denny Hamlin has gone on to say that, yes, he would love to be involved with the sport after his days of racing are over. And in other interviews as well, he never specifically said he is not looking into ownership with any team, including Richard Petty Motorsports. So that idea is definitely still out there, could definitely still be a possibility. Of course, we've also seen drivers in the past be involved in ownership while racing as well. We saw Dale Earnhardt Sr. start Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, where we saw Dale Earnhardt Jr., Michael Waltrip, Steve Park racing for him while he was still racing in the 3 car. At the time, unfortunately, we saw he passed away due to his accident in Daytona, and that team eventually dissolved, but that was started while Dale Earnhardt was still active and driving in the sport. So this idea of Denny Hamlin actually owning a separate team outside of the one he races for has been done before with some success. So I wouldn't call it out of the realm of possibility. So we'll have to see where that goes from here. But I'm sure as Richard Petty Motorsports figures out their future, and things will come more available as the season goes. And talking about Denny Hamlin, who also races Toyotas, the other rumor this recently has been the idea of Richard Petty going over to drive for Toyota instead of their current manufacturer Chevrolet, which with the rumor of Denny Hamlin coming over with potential ownership in Richard Petty Motorsports, the idea of them switching over to Toyota makes a little more sense to me, at least. The idea of Richard Petty Motorsports driving a Toyota in the Cup Series is really odd to me. I'm still trying to get my mind around it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But in this state that we're in NASCAR, with everything changing and teams trying to save money wherever they can, get sponsorships, get backing. Like if they got backing from Denny Hamlin, it wouldn't be so far-fetched as I think it would have been maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so I think all the options seem to be on the table for Richard Petty Motorsports. And as I briefly mentioned, they still need to figure out their 2021 plans as far as a driver as well. We're looking really, it seems that Bubba Wallace's only or real options are either racing the 42 in Chip Ganassi Racing or staying at Richard Petty Motorsports and driving the 43. So that domino needs to fall as well. So there's a lot of questions out there for the Richard Petty Motorsports, the ownership, manufacturer, driver. So Richard Petty Motorsports could look completely different next year. So we're just going to stay tuned and see. So make sure, if you're not already, subscribe. And of course, we'll cover it here when it happens. And so with that said, let's get into the next piece of news. So this was a little bit of a fun piece of news, I guess you could say, that happened this past week. And I'm sure if you're on Twitter or social media, I'm sure you heard about Noah Gragson. He sent out this tweet. I'll post it in the video. He sent out this tweet just with a pen emoji, and Twitter went awry and had all these scenarios that it could potentially mean as far as Noah Gragson's future in the sport. And the biggest rumor being, could he potentially take over the 48 car? Obviously, we know that Jimmie Johnson is retiring after this year. And with that said, man, I'm so bummed that Jimmie Johnson is not going to be in the playoffs this year. It would have been really cool to see him be there. And unfortunately, he missed it because of the big thing going around the world. I won't say it because I don't want to, get demonetized. But and he lost. He got 0 points from racing at Charlotte when he got a penalty. So I believe without those two incidences, Jimmie Johnson probably more than likely would have definitely been in the chase. So it's a bummer to see that was the case. But anyways, going back to Noah Gragson, he tweeted out that pen emoji as I shared, and later he went on to Instagram and said these words. He said, "They were very important papers and never thought this would ever happen in his lifetime." And so when people heard that and he shared that on Instagram, then the rumors of the 48, some other rumors potentially happening for Noah Gragson and his possible move or future in the sport was all over the place. And so for a couple days, people were going left and right with all these ideas. Eventually, on Thursday of last week, I believe it was, JRM sent out a video. I will link it down below so you guys can watch it. But basically, it was Kelly Earnhardt, who runs Junior Motorsports, basically sending a FaceTime video to Noah, telling him that they needed to talk, and he started quite the rumor mill this week, but basically saying, "We're glad that you're coming back to Junior Motorsports in 2021, and they're excited about the future. They're going to bring on Bass Pro Shops. I believe Black Rifle Coffee is coming back." And so basically, Noah driving the 9 car will be back in 2021 full-time with Junior Motorsports. And I think it's a good move for Noah and Junior Motorsports. One, I don't think Noah is necessarily ready for the Cup Series. He does have 2 wins this year at Daytona and Bristol in the Xfinity Series, and he's made some big improvements. Now, Noah Gragson has ruffled a few feathers. Of course, there was the fight and the culmination of events with Harrison Burton, and then there was also the incidents with Mike Snyder earlier in the year. And so I think there may be a little maturity as far as when to push the limit, when not to with Noah Gragson. But I believe he does have a future in the sport, and he could be around for a long time. I think he definitely has the talent. I think a little maturity might go a long way, but I think he's great. He's got great personality. And I think that he could do a lot of good in this sport and really grow his brand and his name. But hopefully next year, being his 3rd season in the Xfinity Series, he can really catapult himself and his career. I believe at that point, I would almost consider him a semi-veteran in the Xfinity Series. And so I think being that he's got the experience, he's got the equipment behind him, I would be shocked if Noah Gragson doesn't rack off a few wins next year and as a true contender for the Xfinity Series championship. I do believe he's a contender for this year, but I believe Justin Allgaier is really strong. We've seen Austin Cindric be super strong. Of course, Chase Briscoe has been really dominant, winning the last, I believe, Daytona race, if I remember correctly. And so he's got some stiff competition, but I believe Noah Gragson does have a pretty good future in the sport, and I'll be excited to see what happens in 2021 for Noah. Of course, always, as always, if you guys have any thoughts, leave a comment down below, and we'll get into the last piece of news, which is all about Ross Chastain and his future in the Xfinity Series with Kaulig Racing. So if you watched the race this past weekend at Daytona, the Xfinity Series, that is, of course, Kaulig Racing was dominating the entire race basically, and they were coming. Ross Chastain and AJ Allmendinger were coming off the final turn, racing for the win, and Ross Chastain basically went down to the yellow line, and in my opinion, AJ Allmendinger went there down for the block a little bit, and they both collected each other and took each other out. Thankfully, their third teammate, Justin Haley, went on to get the win. But after the race and the interview with Ross Chastain, it raised some questions for me in his future with Kaulig Racing. In his post-race interview, Ross Chastain had these interesting words to say, and this first quote that I'm going to mention is the one that really got my attention and really had me raise my eyebrows. He goes, "This race is not going to help me going forward." He also goes on to say, "Going for the checkered, what was I supposed to do? Finish second? Not this guy." So that first quote, "This is not going to help me going forward," really had me raise some eyebrows. Of course, I don't believe we haven't heard any confirmation about his plans next year, going potentially staying with Kaulig Racing or any other team. And so I think with that quote, this isn't going to help me going forward. I think for me, it raised some questions. I don't know if maybe they have obviously must have not had any contract talks, or they're not going far along as far as his potential stay at Kaulig Racing. And I think ruffling some feathers with his teammates probably didn't help his case if things aren't progressing as they probably should be if he's going to stay at Kaulig Racing. And so, and outside of Kaulig Racing, I haven't heard anything or seen anything as far as potential teams that are looking to take Ross Chastain on for next season driving their car. And so where does that leave him? Is he really kind of on the fence as far as his future at Kaulig Racing? Do they want to move forward with him? It sounds like, based off that quote, that he's unsure if Kaulig Racing wants to move forward with him. Unfortunately, this year he hasn't won a race. He's been probably the most consistent driver in the Xfinity Series, but he doesn't have that win yet. And we do see how sometimes he can ruffle some feathers, similar to Noah Gragson. He goes for that win like he did on Saturday night, and he's not afraid to back down, which I admire, and I think it's great for the sport, fun to watch. And so where does that leave him? Is he going to race in the Xfinity Series next year? We know he's basically has a deal with Chip Ganassi Racing as a driver and with Chevrolet. And so does that mean, could he possibly go to the 42 car if Bubba Wallace doesn't take it? Is Chip Ganassi even considering him for that 42 car next year? Because I have high doubt that we'll be back in that car next year, and I think everybody would agree with that. So where does that land Ross Chastain next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I am totally unsure where he's going to go, but that really raised some eyebrows, and I'm really interested to see what happens with Ross Chastain. I think he has a lot of talent. He's proven that. He's won in the Truck Series and Xfinity Series multiple times, and so I definitely think he still has a great future in the sport. He's still pretty young, and I think he's got a lot of marketability with him as well. I think a lot of people like him, want to pull for him, especially his underdog story from where he's came. And so if he doesn't return to Kaulig Racing, I'm sure he'll find a spot, a pretty competitive spot, whether that be in the Xfinity, Trucks, or Cup. There's definitely some possibilities that we've seen what he did with Nice Motorsports last year, almost winning the Truck Series. So he can definitely bring a team that's maybe lower tier, bring that organization up. So even if he went down to a lower tier team in the Xfinity or the Truck Series, I think he could definitely be in potential to win some races and the championships going forward. So we'll see where this plays out. Of course, as I always mention, if anything unfolds and as we hear news about people's future, including Ross Chastain's, we will share it here on the high side. And as always, if you guys have any thoughts, make sure to share them down below. I'd love to hear them. And so that's all the news we have today. Now, we love to share odd history here, so I'm going to pull up one other odd history fact for us to end today's episode. This odd history fact is great because it's all about Darlington and the Southern 500, which is coming up this weekend with the start of the playoffs. In this fact, it says, at the inaugural Southern 500, many drivers not used to such a long race brought an assortment of drinks, with one driver reportedly bringing some beer to drink during it. According to Buck Baker, the beer quickly foamed up and the back of the car began to look like a washing machine as the drink sloshed out of the windows. That would be a sight to see, and that was very interesting. I tried to find a picture, a video, or something of this specific video during the race, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I am looking forward to Darlington Southern 500 Throwback Weekend. Throwback Weekend is always super awesome. I want to make a trip back to Darlington just so I can be a part of a Throwback Weekend. But if you guys did enjoy this episode, make sure you hit that like button. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. If there's, again, questions you have about the sport, anything at all, let me know in the comments below so I can answer it. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. And if you guys want to hang out with me until then, make sure you follow me on Twitch. The link is in the description below as well. And I hope you guys have an awesome day. And I'll catch you in the next episode of The High Side.